Hi, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes to see if any other attendees are joining. We just want to give everybody a chance, and then we will go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. So first, I want to introduce myself. My name is Emma Goldberg. I'm a fourth-year PhD student, and I've been working alongside Zoe, who is a second-year PhD student, and Chris, who's a last semester master's student.
Almost there.
Even us. And we've been working to put together these talks for you guys. Tonight's talk is going to be given by Alice Chanel, and we are so excited for her. We're so excited for you guys to hear it. It's going to be amazing. I do want to take a moment and let you guys know that if you need a translation into American Sign Language, we have Valerie McMillan with us tonight, and we are so appreciative of her being here. So if you guys need that, you can pin her little box to the top of your screen, and then she will stay with you and guide you through tonight's talk. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Chris to read the land acknowledgement statement.
Turn my camera. Hey, everybody. As Emma said, my name is Chris Rickson. I'm a second-year master's student in sociology. And tonight I'm going to recite a land acknowledgement statement that was adopted by ECU's SGA a while back. The reason for this is that it's important to remember that this land was stolen and that colonization, one of the many grotesque products of imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy, is an ongoing process and injury across our nation and the world. And therefore, we must take steps to bring forgotten histories into our shared collective consciousness. The statement reads, "We acknowledge the Tuscarora people, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live, and recognize their continuing connection to the land, water, and air that Greenville consumes. We pay respect to 8 recognized tribes, the Coharie, Eastern Band of Cherokee, Haudenosaunee, Lumbee, Meherrin, Occaneechi Band of Saponi, Saponi, and Waccamaw Soan, all nations and their elders past, present, and emerging." The floor is yours, Emma and Zoe.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. Before we get started, I did just want to kind of take a minute and acknowledge some things that have been going on in the news for everyone. Again, not a lot. We've all heard the headlines and seen them, I'm sure. But, you know, I just wanted to take a minute and just kind of acknowledge that for everyone. There's been a lot of bad stuff in the news lately, and I know it can be really overwhelming. And just a lot to handle mentally and emotionally, especially, you know, everyone is part of this ECU family. And I think it's important that we all kind of stick out there for each other, and really support each other through these times. And also take heed when people say they need a mental break, an emotional break from everything that's happening. But we just wanted to acknowledge that, especially as we work to make these talks as accessible as possible, but we also know that they relate a lot to things that are happening in the media. So, you know, please take care of yourself and take care of those around you. And on that note, we're really excited that we are working with the graduate school because these talks are recorded and available on WebEx and through the graduate school's Facebook page. So if there's anyone you know that was not able to make it tonight, I know there's block scheduling, so things are a little weird. Please forward them the link. It'll be available for 6 months, so please continue to pass these things on. And any of our previous talks are also available on the Facebook page. And so please continue to kind of pass those on to everyone. With that, I want to go ahead and transition over to Miss Alice Chenal. We're so grateful that she's here tonight. Her talk, we're so excited about. I think everyone's going to love it. And I'll go ahead and let her introduce it so I don't butcher it.
Thanks, Julie, Emma, and Chris. Hello, everyone. I am Alice Chenal, and I am a third-year DRPH student in the Department of Public Health at East Carolina University. Tonight, I plan to share with you the importance of constructing a business case for diversity and inclusion. If my slides do not behave, I will let them catch up and I'll keep going. I do not have any disclosures. I would like to share that I am a certified diversity professional. So therefore, much of the framework and theory that is being shared on this evening is pretty much lifted from their model. Okay. We'll let it catch up. The slides are a little bit delayed. But the objectives of tonight's talk is pretty much how do we identify what is diversity or what is inclusion, and the gaps that are linked to academic training, research, and practice when in the absence of diversity and inclusion. What are the impacts or the implications of diversity and inclusion in the public health environment, which is the sector that I work in and am a student? And last but not least, to raise the consciousness of defining and operationalizing the business case, which indicates, well, which includes, but is not limited to, the return on investment. I really want
Alice, hold on just 1 second. Can you just try to click through it again and see?
Your slides are just, we don't want anyone to miss anything.
Okay, everyone, give us 1 second so we can sort this out.
It's working just a second. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
there we go. All
there
right.
Okay.
And action. So there's a disclosure slide in the website for societyfordiversity.org and the objectives and outcome. So let's get down to talk about this. Let's talk about it. Why or what is a business case for diversity and inclusion? It's a reasoned proposal. Anytime a business case is developed, it's developed to make a proposal for a change, whether it's in an organization or any type of organization, academic institution. The goal is to make a change. And so the first is to define it. You know, what is the change that you are interested in making? And then once it's defined, how does it play out? How does it link to the mission, the vision, and the goals of the organization? So operationalizing it, making it a part of the business imperative. And that's the missing element in diversity and inclusion. We hear a lot of people talk about diversity work or inclusion work or D&I work, but there's scarce work around how do we turn it into a business imperative that we have metrics to actually measure what exactly this impact is on an organization's goals. So the mission, the vision, and the strategic plan of any organization with a D&I agenda should include this language, the definition and operationalizing it. So obviously I took too long again because it's not moving. Let's see. I'll keep talking. So let's define diversity. When I say diversity, I'm talking about people. I'm talking about diversity in people's perspectives, diversity in their beliefs and their styles. People, our greatest asset, human capital. But when I say inclusion, I'm speaking about an organization. I'm talking about mission, the vision, the goals, the strategic plan. What are some of the benefits of having a diversity and inclusion plan and making the business case clear on how an organization plans to carry this work out? One is standard business practice. Two, it links organizational values to the goals and not personal values. It impacts the bottom line. When we want to expand or we want to, say, diversify our market or our recruitment strategies or the work that we do, then we're doing diversity work, diversity and inclusion. Can't do one without the other. When we want to strengthen areas that have gaps, diversity and inclusion is often a go-to method to get that done. And last but not least is the human capital. We want to maximize that. That is what diversity and inclusion clearly links to, maximizing who's there and who you want to get there as it relates to any type of organization. I'll keep talking. This is interesting.
Wait,
Uh-huh.
can you exit out again and maybe pull up the next slide? We're going to try to work on something, but until that happens, can you just exit out? Yep.
Seems to be working.
Here we go. Now there you go. Perfect.
All right. So, what are the goals of a D&I agenda when we are talking about a business case? One of the first things that comes to the minds of most is that you don't want to have a lawsuit pending, or you don't want negative publicity, turnover from an HR perspective. When people are not feeling included, then they're feeling excluded. So it's easier probably for most people that show up every day for a 9 to 5 that are feeling some level of exclusion to leave and go someplace that they're more comfortable. And then innovation, interested in doing more or doing something different, but looking for fresh ideas, new experiences and perspectives. That's what D&I brings. Demonstrates a high return on investment, improving satisfaction, but most of all, from an ECU perspective, preparing for the future. So what are some of the objectives? Why is it that people take deep breaths when we start to talk about diversity and inclusion? Or how important it is to craft it in the as a business case so it gets included in the fabric of an organization. There are lots of times complaints of reverse discrimination. There are issues with the absence of empirical data. And you and I know, because this is why you're on here, that it's a multidimensional framework, but in many cases, it comes from one perspective, one dimension. Data is often soft and anecdotal evidence. So what's in a business case? Because I don't want this to sound like some dissertation. This is a document that is outlined here. These are all the components of it, but here's what we want to get when we're crafting it. The first is the purpose. The purpose is to invoke action. We are wanting to say, business case for diversity inclusion is to meet this goal as a part of our organization, as part of our mission. Then we want to make sure we invoke action by saying, okay, well, where are we now? So that could be either a diversity audit or some type of cultural audit to see what's happening, who's here on our campus, and what are they doing on our campus, and how can we be more inclusive with who's here, and again, around recruitment. The introduction focuses more on the gap. Why is it that we feel that it's important to focus on diversity and inclusion? Where's the gap? And then there are the assumptions and methods. Like in many cases, not people in the health sector, return on investment is a very popular term. Being able to quantify why and what and the contribution and what happens when you spend this money, what comes back to you. And so being able to do that in D&I is equally important. What about boundaries? What if we're here in Eastern North Carolina, but we want to move further west? So geography is huge, as well as technology. How can we use technology to capitalize on all the opportunities that are out there to include other people and diversify our work? Cost is a huge issue. As it relates to not only cost to avoid litigation or to avoid it, but cost to actually invest and build this into an organization. And then the objectives. This is where a lot of the gap is, not just data, but hard data, but also measurable objectives that you can take the performance and look at it on a regular basis and understand exactly what's going on. Am I really doing it, or am I dressing the window? And again, results, whether they're financial results or non-financial results, expected results. So essentially, building a business case for diversity and inclusion is really about what are the best practices that we can employ to be inclusive with ethnic and racial minorities. What are the things that we can do to ensure women or people from different generations that are in our workforce or of other groups feel that they are having opportunities, and not only that they're having opportunities, that they feel safe in this organization or as a part of this, even the campus. Okay. Let's see what happens. All right, moving along.
If it does this, just maybe exit out of it like you did and then load the slide back up.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's doing that.
Interesting, yeah. So moving along, what are the implications for public health? So one of the things I failed to mention before when I was just giving brief introductions about myself is that I've been working in this space for over 20 years. I've been working as a public health practitioner since '98. And to that point, this working in public health, this comes with the territory of understanding, how to get the collective impact or of a community to see the change that brings about not only health, but wholeness to communities. But most importantly, well, I wouldn't say most importantly, but the work started with even human relations. I did quite a bit of volunteering work in my community. I'm from Edgecombe County, where I was very active on the Human Relations Commission for more than one cycle. And so my work around diversity also includes workforce diversity. So I listed this report missing from the Sullivan Commission, Missing Persons, Minorities in Health Professions. But I must, even go back, although I was in middle school, but there's a Heckler report that was released, and it was called Black and Minority Health. And that report was really the catalyst of saying, why is it that we have people that are having different health outcomes, dying at a different rate, and the only difference that we can really map right now is race? Something's wrong, critically wrong. And so that work started, I would say more on a national level of a movement around the National Office on Minority Health. And it was the start of where we are now, I would say. So with the missing persons, that focus more on the workforce, that not everybody, but at least a percentage of people who are delivering the care should mirror the population that is accessing the care. And to that point, if we look back at what the focus of this particular report had on just the impact of people being able to relate, connect, and have what they would consider a connection to their provider, not just based on race, but also even gender or age. So diversifying the work was a huge movement here, and much of this work was around diversifying the workforce with ethnic and racial minorities. So diversity inclusion work is very much tied to reducing health disparities. It is aligned with the class standards. So how is it, what are the class standards? Culturally, linguistically, and appropriate services. That in many cases, people think about language barriers, but there's so many pieces and parts to being culturally appropriate in terms of services that are provided, whether it's based upon a reading level, or it could be based upon religious beliefs around health. So class standards are so, if diversity and inclusion was a part of the lens, even around the class standards, we would see a different outcome. Addressing social determinants of health. So there, I know everyone on may not have a public health background, but finally we are making waves with understanding that people aren't just having poor health outcomes because they do not care, or just because of their diet, or they don't exercise a certain amount. Those are contributing factors, but there's some social drivers, transportation, income, housing. So there's and I want to get into listing what social determinants of health are, because it varies by community, it varies based on time of year. So clearly, diversity and inclusion work aligns with addressing social determinants of health to create that outcome that that patient seems to think that's important for themselves. I've mentioned workforce diversity, and this is where I really spend my energy around this diversity work, or not just diversity work as a public health practitioner, communities. The importance of a community thriving and being healthy, and industries come into a community because they have actually a workforce that they can recruit from. They actually have a strong enough economy that their business can actually do exactly what it's designed to do in that particular community. Is super important around health outcomes. Decisions are made every day about which community you build that plant in based on health and health outcomes. And so diversity and inclusion is a huge part of that, because again, we're not just talking about people, we're talking about being inclusive and creating opportunities that everyone can have that is a part of that community. And so we wouldn't want the job opportunities that comes to a community to only be for a certain group of people. We would want everyone to have academic training or whatever certification that is needed. So being inclusive is being conscious that this community includes several types and differences of people. And so how do we make this healthy and whole for everyone? And from a public health perspective, diversity and inclusion drives right down the middle of global health opportunities. Again, challenges and opportunities. The lack of empirical data is a huge factor in why diversity inclusion seems more of soft, or it seems more of this is something we can rubber stamp and we can say it's here. We have it written here and it lives on the desk or in some folder or file cabinet, but doesn't become an operational document that is actually measured and looked upon on several times to see where are we and how does this impact financial outcomes? How does it impact quality outcomes? And again, looking back at this list, just operational return on investment. These are like the areas, really the core areas. These are domains that are important to make sure that if we are focusing on diversity and inclusion, that is tied to this, the return on investment, the financials, as well as the quality. We have tons of great literature out there that gives us access to trainings and toolkits that allow us, which are important, very important. I value those. Allow us to do some things around working again with people from the diversity perspective, but from an organizational perspective. Hear me when I say we're talking about changing a system and how it operates. So these are areas that are challenges as well as opportunities, not just in an academic setting, but also in the workforce, in research, and definitely public health practice. So in this slide right here, income is a predictor of health outcomes. And so this slide shows the medium to large workplaces, and looking at just two racial groups here, or ethnic groups here, and the occupation level. If you look here, 23% of whites are in professional jobs. Okay, so we're talking about the difference in pay, okay, earnings, income. And then over here, 20% of Blacks are in service jobs. And so let's go drill a little bit deeper. So everybody's talking about where the gap is around how many people are getting COVID or dying of COVID. And so let's be realistic, just like we need to be realistic about health disparities. It's not because people sign up to have or make a conscious decision to be unhealthy, or are doing so many things that are at much higher risk in their own personal lives that gets them exposed to COVID. It's because they're in the service jobs. They're in the jobs that are making them at higher risk on the front line. That's the difference. So I'm going to acknowledge here the National Institute for Healthcare Management Foundation and their definition for systemic racism. It's the way policies and practices of organizations or systems advantage some populations while disadvantaging others, creating different outcomes for different racial groups. Now, this is just for this group, but this spans any type of ism across the diversity and inclusion lens. Either people are included or they're not. The one thing I want to say, and I had this comment for later on, is that I don't want to plant a seed that this is a destination because it's a journey. It's a fluid process. The consciousness and the awareness is a great place to start, because what it does is if there's a business case that say this is tied here, if we're tracking performance, if we're tracking and evaluating our own work in this space, in this lens, then it'll be obvious that certain groups have different outcomes than others. In healthcare, more specifically primary care, what are the stratifications around one group work versus another? Why is it that we have this one group that we just can't get blood pressure controlled? And spending time understanding what needs to be done differently. That's diversity and inclusion work, to decide I'm not going to exclude this group because of the majority of the patients may be controlled, but that I'm going to work hard to make sure that 40% that's in the uncontrolled group gets the right attention. And whatever changes that are needing to be made to get there, we go there. The next slide I have that'll come up when it's ready is a slide that, and I also want to have acknowledgements at the end, that UMass at their on their website, they have an interactive site with equity data, which is it's an interactive site with with data on various areas around employment. And so the slide is up, this that should be coming up soon is I'm looking at North Carolina, and the data was collected between 2012 and 2016, and the number of retaliations around complaints around people having around a sexual preference and how they felt excluded because of that, and the amount of money on average that was paid out as a result of that. That's an example of how when people are excluded or feel excluded, some of the behavior or some of the what we consider consequences. I want this slide to show so badly. But anyway.
Alice, I'm sorry. Can you try to back out and click in?
Yeah,
I don't know why that works.
Technology is not on our side tonight.
Here it is.
Perfect. Thanks everyone for being patient.
It's okay. It's okay. There's a reason it's behaving like this. It's okay. I'm good. And thank you. So here's the slide I was mentioning, and just really quick, I know it's a little gray here and faint, but that 66% of people that had this complaint actually lost their jobs. So we're talking about people moving from having a job, going through an experience of feeling excluded, and then actually losing their job. So this again is on that site. This is the coffin right here, the nail for the coffin around how if we don't move the needle on being more serious and being more invested in diversity and inclusion, this is what happens. So the map that you see here, the dark pink fuchsia color, is pretty much Eastern North Carolina, the 29 counties. This is where we live. This is where we work. This is where we pray. This is where we play. And so as a part of the strategic plan for East Carolina University is to lead regional transformation. And indeed, we can do that. But when we look at this map, and this map is designed to show, shows that in North Carolina, where these fuchsia areas are, there are people dying at a higher rate of chronic diseases than people in other parts of the state. And the prevalence of them having diseases that are, in some cases, treatable and curable at a much higher rate. And so what happens to a local economy? What happens to a region if we do not have not only a workforce, but a community that can live a healthy life, but have some level of, when I say diversity and inclusion, but have some level of what we would consider equitable opportunities to have this turnaround. And what does that look like? So when we talk about diversity and inclusion and how it impacts an economy, this is an entire region that the work is before us. The other thing I wanted to mention that's more specific to home around diversity and inclusion is SAFE is the accrediting organization for schools of public health. And so they are interested or not interested, they are asking schools, they're saying we must spend more time including diversity and inclusion in content and the work that happens in a school of public health. There are 59 schools in this country that are accredited. And so this study was, this data was collected in 2017, study released in 18. 12 out of 59 of those schools did not define diversity in their mission, their vision, nor their strategic plan. 23% did not mention diversity, equity, or inclusion in any of those documents. 11% mentions equity, only 33% diversity, only other 33% more than one concept, which would be one of the three: diversity, equity, or inclusion. So one of the goals, strategic goals at East Carolina, is to grow from being a Department of Public Health to School of Public Health. And I'm, for one, super excited. So this is our opportunity. This is our opportunity to emphasize how important it is to reach out and have not only diversity around counting who's on staff or who's in, what kind of students, where students are from, but where can we take this, or how can we take this further and say we want to be inclusive? Where is it in the business imperative to say this is how we're going to measure how well we're doing? I'm pausing. So now, where does that leads us? A call to action. I mentioned it earlier, and I'll say it again, that diversity inclusion work is really is not a destination, it's a journey. We must revisit it often. We must respond and not react. If we're silent, in many cases, that is assumed to be to consent with whatever it is. And so there is a way to not always have to put the label of D&I on the work that we're doing, but to weave it into the fabric of the mission and the goals and the work that's coming out of any kind, not just a department, but an organization, period. And so someone is thinking, so what do we do? What's the next step? Is there a diversity plan? And if it is, are there clear definitions on what diversity is, or is inclusion a part of it? And if there is, whether there is or isn't, it's time for a climate analysis or a cultural audit to kind of understand where are we and what can we do different. And then last but not least, intentionality around recruitment, promoting, and retaining diverse talent. This is not the playbook. Let me state that clearly, but these are some things to trigger our thoughts around our investment in diversity and inclusion, and a pathway, which is the business case that really brings a business imperative up front, labels it, and gives it some legs to walk, operationalizing it. I like to end with a story, a really quick story, but it's a classic example of where diversity and inclusion can take us. So some years ago, a gentleman who lives in California, Hispanic gentleman, was a janitor in a business, and the business pretty much, one of the senior leaders asked for pitches for ideas. And so this gentleman with less than a middle school education said, this company makes Cheetos. Had you thought about making Cheetos hot? Because my people like hot food. And so he and his wife made a visit to the library. They came up with their best pitch to share this idea as a business proposal. And this gentleman went from being the janitor to being one of the vice presidents in this company. And I haven't checked the market to see what the stock is like in Cheetos, but they are highly sought after by some. But they're good. I like them. But it's a classic story of a product that's on the market right now. I think they made Funyuns, they made Pringles, there are all types of hot, flaming hot snacks now. But the point in case is, he had an opportunity. He felt safe. He felt included. Therefore, he was able to contribute from his perspective and his experience to his company's growth, and most importantly, to his own growth. And I think the thing that gets me excited is his philanthropic arm of what he's doing now and how he's giving back and creating opportunities for others. So let us think about it. Again, raising consciousness was my primary goal for today. This again isn't the playbook, but some things that we can think about as we move forward. I do want to acknowledge my department and all those that support me in ECU's Department of Public Health. Thank you so much. And I'm almost there, and I'm looking forward to the finish line. I want to thank Dr. Jimperling, Zoe, Emma, Chris, and all of those hands that are on deck to put the Part Talks together. I call her my subject matter expert, Toya Jacobs, who supported this talk. And I do not have this gentleman on speed dial, Dr. David Padula, but he was so supportive to respond to my email and share the UMass site where he was once employed, recommending that I take a look at some of this data as I prepare to share some comments tonight. So I'm gonna toss it back to you, Zoe and Emma, for any questions that we might have or conversations. Thank you.
Yay, Alice, thank you so much. That was amazing. Again, as always, our video and everything is off. We're cheering the whole time. Very excited. We do have a few questions coming in. For anyone that has questions, please submit them in the Q&A, and just make sure that all panelists are in the little box so that we get it. That way we don't put all the pressure on Alice to read and answer the questions. The first question.
So the first question for you is, oh my gosh, hold on 1 second. They're coming in and now I have to scroll back up. Do you see with organizations or businesses that are having an inclusion diversity initiative that you're able to attract, develop, inspire, and reward top talent? Because, you know, by having these initiatives, oh my gosh, my voice, you're essentially expanding the base for hiring employees.
So just to be sure I understand, are we talking about transactional versus transformational leadership styles that reward people for performance and I just want to make sure I understand. I want to go, can you read that again?
So it's by having an IND initiative, do you see that you're able to attract, develop, inspire, and reward top talent? So like, are you able to just get maybe just more talent in?
And by having that initiative, do you think that it's able to attract more people, but also develop the people that you have? Do you think that that's a necessary step to do that?
I think it's transactional as well as transformative. Yes. Being able to add talent and diverse talent to any team will grow the work. And how that is incentivized is, you know, it depends upon the industry. It's hard to do that in healthcare. If you meet the quality measures, you get the incentives. But yes, I totally believe that those things are possible and should be a part of the plan.
So I know your talk was more focused on public health and hospitals. Can you relate some of this information though to businesses that maybe aren't public health focused, but are just maybe like consulting or anything else?
So one of the areas that interests me is when people ask or they have organizations non-health organizations, they'll have these goals. They'll say they want to grow their market or they want to expand, and their plan is to diversify it, and you don't know what that means, you know? So the most important thing I would say to any organization is make sure you define what you mean. And then the second is measure it. And when I say window dressing, I say that because it's kind of like a loose term. People say a lot of things, but you never really see any tracking and monitoring and any outputs from it. And so I think that any organization that is going to say this word, diversity and inclusion, name it, give it a definition, and develop parameters to say this is where we are, even if you're not moving in the direction or at the speed you would like, still yet have some level of measurement and performance around it.
Okay, awesome. So a couple of other questions that we had were actually about providing some links. One in particular was, can you please provide the link to some URLs leading to rubrics to conduct diversity climate analysis? And if you have those, especially to, I think someone else asked for the links that you had, some of the dashboards that you showed. Mm-hmm. I think what we'll do is we'll connect with Alice and maybe post those on the Graduate School Facebook page in the next few days. And that way everyone can kind of peruse those on their own time. If there's anything in particular, please just continue to submit it in the Q&A so that we can let Alice know which ones people really want to see.
And I would speak to the audit. There's some great tools online. There are actually a lot of academic institutions. They have their tool posted online, and they have their data on there showing, like, you know, what their findings were, and they're very transparent about, like, okay, this is what we're planning to do. So I actually recently, just for my own employer, pulled some from online to support some of the work that we're doing here. I would say that the office of the ODE office is a great resource you have on that campus. I have known Lakeisha for a long time. I'm gonna call her out and know that she's true to the work, and that's a tremendous resource you have there. I have recently met Toya through you all and would say that definitely reach out for tools and for some guidance and support, technical assistance for your journey.
Yes, I'll echo that before we move on to the next question. Besides the fact that everyone in that office is incredible, which should not be besides the fact statement, they really, really, truly are, and have won recent awards too for the work that they are doing, which is incredible. There's so many resources on that website. I mean, you could spend weeks on that website. So, and then if you have questions about anything, you can always reach out to them, and they're so phenomenal. Next question.
We have another question for you. What advice do you have for faculty and administrators of ECU? And there's a couple parts. So, what kind of changes could be made in curriculums to improve diversity and inclusion in programs now and within the communities for when students finish their degrees?
Wow. I think, let me speak, not as a student, let me speak as a, someone that lives in rural Eastern North Carolina and have invested a lot of time in students. I think that ECU, hands down, no organization and no person can say that they have the playbook on how to get this done to get the results that they want. But having a playbook that says this is how we're going to respond. And I think that I don't want to be biased because I don't know the whole campus, but I can speak highly for the health sciences campus that platform was developed a long time ago. And I remember like being a part of conversations. And so the platform is there. I just read something from, I cannot think of his name, at School of Medicine, and he's in charge of diversity. But at any rate, I would say that faculty can start at a very granular level by looking in your content for your courses that you teach, if you are overseeing a department, and being intentional about what does that look like? How does it play itself out? When I say lens, I mean like, if you know that your students represent a certain population, what does it look like for that student when they enter the workforce? How do you help them with that transition? How do they navigate, helping them navigate so that the representation, parity, and inclusion of workforces that don't necessarily mirror people that look like them? That's really, I mean, you can't do that if you are I get it, if you are an advisor for 500 students, and I'm exaggerating, I have no idea what the caseload is, but I do know that just taking that time to be very honest, if you know that your students that are white and come from a certain background, they have parents that are already working in this domain, they definitely need support. But what about the students that come from a different background, that are starting from a different playing field? And again, using data to drive it, showing them how this plays out, the diversity and inclusion lens, whether it's amount of money made or whatever the case may be from a business perspective. But I think starting even right there, and then from a department level, looking at, or if it's a accredited program, looking at, making sure it's defined in the mission. So I think starting at small levels are just as important as some huge sweep to say, this is what we're going to do by 2030.
Yes, and I wanted to give a shout out because I'm pretty sure the person we were talking about is Dr. Bright, and he's remarkable in the medical school. He's a big proponent of diversity over there, and he's been really, really incredible and helping.
Definitely know him. I'm trying to remember, this guy's name starts with a K, and I'm so sorry because I have reached out.
Okay. That's okay.
I'm sorry if you're watching. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think it was 2017, 2016 when he came on board. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have
That's
to Google
okay.
it. I'll have to Google it.
So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up questions for the evening. But thank you all so much for submitting the questions. And thank you so much, Alice. This was such an amazing presentation. I really cannot say that enough. It was so, so good. And I really want to encourage everyone that attended tonight to please share this with anyone that you think it's relevant to, which is everyone, especially since it's the business case for diversity. I know it hits a lot of everyone's kind of button in the university, which is really exciting. So please share it. It's on the Graduate School's Facebook page, and I think there's a WebEx recording if you just go into ECU's WebEx. But yeah, thank you everyone so much for attending. Thank you, Alice. Valerie, thank you so much for translating tonight. We so appreciate you being here. I think that's all I have. Oh, and if you have further questions or things you want to talk about or look into, please always go to the Office of Equity and Diversity's website. They have all kinds of things listed there and are there for this purpose, to promote diversity and inclusion. So please don't forget about them. Thank you all so much for attending. Same time, same place next week. Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.